This is Company Saturdays. Every Saturday we present you with another company. Today we're looking at 15 things you didn't know about Ford Motors. Welcome to Alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Hello Aluxers, and welcome to another exciting original video presented by Alux.com. Today we're revealing some interesting and lesser known facts about the Ford Motor Company, one of the longest running and most successful automakers in the world. The Ford Motor Company was established in 1903 in Detroit, Michigan, with a total of $28,000 contributed by 12 investors, including John and Horace Dodge, who went on to create their own well-known auto brand. Although the company started out small, they expanded quickly, largely thanks to the innovation and ideas of their leader, Henry Ford, who was 39 years old when the business was founded. In 1908, Ford started mass-producing the Model T, which really expanded the recognition of the brand and revolutionized the auto industry. In 1922, Ford purchased the Lincoln Motor Company to expand into the luxury market. In the decades since, Ford has introduced a number of iconic and successful vehicle models, including the Mustang, Focus, Taurus, Fiesta, GT, Fusion, Flex, Explorer, and F-150. Although the Ford Motor Company has had major ups and downs in their 100-plus year history, they are currently going strong with record revenues and exciting innovations. We want to learn some more about Ford because we are inspired by their longevity, resilience, global success, and innovative spirit. If you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Alux. So, let's take a closer look now at this auto giant with the 15 things you didn't know about Ford. Number 1. The Model T Ford was the best-selling car decades after production ceased. The Ford Model T was first produced in 1908. By 1914, approximately 9 out of every 10 vehicles worldwide were Fords. The Model T became the first car to sell 1 million units in 1915 and was also the first model to have 5 million, 10 million, and 15 million sold. Production ceased on the Model T Ford in 1927, yet it remained the best-selling car until 1972, 45 years after the last unit was produced, and when the Volkswagen Beetle took over. A total of 16.5 million Model Ts were sold in the history of the model. Number 2. The Ford Fiesta is the best-selling car in Europe. As of March 2017, the Ford Fiesta became the best-selling car in Europe, overtaking the Volkswagen Golf. Ford sold 47,000 Fiestas in Europe in March of 2017 alone, and increased their sales in the region 12% from the previous fiscal year. The Ford Falcon is also the best-selling car in Australia, with over 3 million sold. Number 3. Henry Ford built his first vehicle in 1896. The Model T was not Henry Ford's first vehicle. In fact, he created the first vehicle nearly 15 years before the Model T was produced, and when he was 32 years old. He called his car the quadricycle because it ran on 4 bicycle wheels. It only had 4 horsepower and was controlled by a tiller instead of a steering wheel. It also had 2 forward gears and no way to operate in reverse. Ford only made 3 of these cars, selling them for $200 each. He later went on to buy back his first quadricycle for $60, and it is now on display at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. Number 4. Ford's assembly line decreased production time from 12.5 to 1.5 hours. The person who brought the idea of the assembly line to Ford was William Klon, who first observed the process in a slaughterhouse where animal carcasses were butchered in a systematic way as they moved along a conveyor belt. The Ford Corporation refined the process through trial and error, eventually creating the integrated moving assembly line in 1913, which revolutionized auto production and many other industries as a part of the Industrial Revolution. Thanks to the assembly line, production of the Model T chassis went from 12.5 hours to 1.5 hours, allowing Ford to increase production and lower the cost of the final product. Number 5. In 2012, a Ford GT40 became the most expensive American car ever sold at auction. In 2012, a special 1968 Ford GT40 Gulf race car set records when it sold at auction for $11 million, becoming the most expensive American car ever sold at auction. The GT had an extensive race history before being leased to Steve McQueen's production company to be used as a camera car in the 1971 film Le Mans. The car was completely restored in 2002 and remains one of the only two surviving Gulf Mirage M1s. It held the record until 2016 when a Shelby 260 Cobra sold for over $14 million at auction. Number 6. Ford's largest annual loss was $14.6 billion. Due to a number of factors, including increased healthcare costs in the U.S., high gasoline prices, and an over-reliance on declining SUV sales, Ford struggled through the early 2000s with declining profits and decreased demand, which led to several years of the company losing money instead of making it. The largest annual loss was posted in 2008, with a total loss of $14.6 billion, even after selling Jaguar and Land Rover to Tata Motors for $2.3 billion. The following year, they were able to return to profitability for the first time in 4 years with $2.7 billion in profit, and they have been steadily increasing that profit every year since. Number 7. As many as 900 people died as a result of a Ford Pinto defect. The Ford Pinto was introduced in 1971 and experienced quick success, selling over 328,000 in its first year. However, the car was built with a defect, where in a rear-end collision, the fuel filler neck could easily puncture the fuel tank, which would spray fuel into the passenger compartment and quickly ignite. A later investigation revealed that Ford knew about the defect before the Pinto went to production, and even did a cost analysis of how many deaths the defect might cause per year and how much it would cost them in lawsuits, versus how much it would cost to fix the problem up front. Although it would only cost an additional $11 per car to upgrade the fuel system, Ford decided they would save their money by just paying the wrongful death lawsuits. As many as 900 people died due to the defect, which far exceeded the company's expectations. They ended up recalling 1.5 million Pintos in 1978 and paid hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits, which deeply affected Ford's financial stability for almost 10 years. Take that as proof as why you should never, ever cut corners. Number 8. Ford avoided the largest auto recall in history by mailing out stickers. After still dealing with the financial fallout of the Pinto scandal, Ford faced another major setback when an investigation determined that all of their automatic transmissions from 1966 to 1980 had a defect that could cause the transmission to slip from park to reverse, causing the car to roll backward unexpectedly. The defect was found to have caused 777 accidents, with 23 deaths and 259 injuries. Ford had known about the defect for 8 years before it was revealed to the public, and had even rejected a fix that would have only cost 3 cents per car. They instead paid $20 million in lawsuits. Ford was nearly forced to recall 23 million vehicles, but told the U.S. government this would lead to their bankruptcy. Instead, a compromise was reached, where they would mail out stickers to the owners of the affected cars for them to place on their dashboards to remind them to turn the parking brake on when they parked. In the 4 years following the sticker shipment, an additional 54 deaths were caused by the defect. Number 9. It's one of the largest family-controlled companies in the world. Most people know that the Ford Motor Company was created by Henry Ford, but what many people may not realize is that it's been a family-run company for the entire 114 years of its existence. The company went public in 1956, and the Ford family owns just 1% of the equity currently, but 40% of the voting power. The current executive chairman, William C. Ford Jr., is the great-grandson of Henry Ford. As for the largest family-controlled company in the world, that's Walmart, while Ford comes in 5th on the list. Number 10. Ford had $156.7 billion in revenue in 2017. In 2017, Ford had their best year in terms of revenue in the past 10 years, with $156.7 billion in sales. The 2017 numbers show an increase of $5 billion from the 2016 fiscal year. Ford is ranked 5th in terms of revenue among competing car companies, behind General Motors, Daimler, Volkswagen, and Toyota. We talk about the top-selling car company in our video, 15 Things You Didn't Know About Toyota. Click on the upper right-hand corner to check it out. Number 11. Ford had the most patents awarded of any auto company in 2016. In 2016, Ford employees submitted patent applications for 8,000 inventions, which was the highest number in the company's history. A total of 1,500 U.S. patents were granted, along with 1,700 other patents worldwide, for an industry-leading 3,200 patents granted in 1 year's time. These numbers are just proof of Ford's continuing dedication to innovation. Number 12. Ford bought shuttle van startup Chariot for $65 million back in 2016. Chariot is a startup based in San Francisco, California, that offers a ride-sharing shuttle van service as an alternative to mass transit. Ford's acquisition of the company will lead to riders being able to request rides in real time, much like Lyft and Uber, but they'll be picked up in a 15-passenger Ford van. Shortly after the time of their purchase, Chariot was using 100 Ford Transit vans on 28 crowdsourced routes, and they have since expanded to several other cities, including New York, Seattle, San Antonio, and London. Number 13. The Ford F-Series has been the best-selling car in America for 36 consecutive years. The Ford F-Series is a series of trucks that have been in production since 1948. It's been the best-selling truck in the United States since 1977 and the best-selling vehicle overall since 1981, an incredible 36 consecutive years. In 2016, 820,799 F-Series trucks were sold in the U.S. alone, and it's also the best-selling car in Canada. Ford has produced over 35 million F-Series trucks in the history of the model. The F-Series brings in about $41 billion in revenue annually for Ford, making the model more valuable on its own than brands such as Nike, McDonald's, and Samsung. Number 14. Ford was instrumental in creating the American middle class. In 1914, Ford implemented their new $5 per day payment policy, which was double what other factories were paying workers at the time. An estimated 10,000 people lined up at the Ford factory the day after the new salary was announced, with hopes of getting hired. Henry Ford also shortened the work week by an hour, from 9 hours to 8 hours, which allowed him to run 3 shifts instead of 2. The higher payments and shorter work days that many companies adopted, in addition to Ford providing an increased personal mobility thanks to car ownership, were important factors in establishing the American middle class in the early 1900s. Number 15. Ford was the first to use rear passenger seatbelts, among many other firsts. In 1927, the first car to feature safety glass in the windows was the Model A Ford. This is just one of the many firsts of the innovative Ford company. They were also the first to produce a commercially viable V8 engine in 1932, the first to install seat belts in the rear seats of a vehicle in 1956, the first to implement child safety locks in 1957, and the first to use a seatbelt reminder light in 1965, just to name a few. Now that you've learned some more about Ford, we'd like to know, do you consider them among the top 3 auto brands worldwide? Let us know what you think in the comments. Still here? Here's a bonus fact just for you. Number 16. Ford came out of a 20-year retirement to be reinstated as president at 80 years old. In 1943, Henry Ford came out of a 20-year period without an executive title to again assume the position of president of the Ford Motor Company. Unfortunately, he was 80 years old at the time and not mentally or physically fit enough to properly handle such a large corporation. During this time, the company was losing more than $10 million per month, which is over $141 million at today's valuation. He remained president for about 2.5 more years before passing the presidency on to his grandson. Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxer. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. If you want more, we handpicked these videos you might enjoy, or head over to Alux.com for the best in fine living content on the planet. Be a part of the largest community of luxury enthusiasts in the world and tell your story.